This is Rich Kramer with Big Mountain Enduro, and this is the Beyond the Ride podcast. This season, we'll be checking in with mountain bike athletes, brands, and individuals doing big things for the sport of mountain biking. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the next episode of Beyond the Ride. I'm Rich Kramer with Big Mountain Enduro, and today we are talking with Dee Tidwell. Hey, Dee.
Rich, what's happening?
How you doing, buddy? Good. Let me introduce everybody to Dee. The world probably knows Dee a lot better than I know Dee. I'm kind of newer to the BME world, but from what I understand, you've been around BME for a while now and doing the enduro thing for a while now, and well known as a rider, as a trainer, and I kind of want to get into all those things. But and you're also out in Colorado, right? You're out there in Colorado?
Yes, the land of tundra.
Man, is Colorado getting stomped on like California and that stuff? Have you seen what's going on out there?
Yeah, dude. Yosemite closed like indefinitely because of 15 feet of snow. Like, that's just wild.
Man, I didn't hear that.
We are not. Yet. Yeah, we got a bunch, but it was enough, and then the subsequent cold iced everything up. So, trail riding like really hasn't been around since December. So that's just super rare for us.
Yeah.
So we're having kind of a proper winter, which is nice actually, but
a proper winter, like not
snow riding.
Yeah, hundreds of feet of snow, man. I feel so bad for some of those people I watch on the news, and their entire lives are buried under so much snow.
Yeah, it makes me think that a lot of in the West, at least, some of these races aren't going to get done because of just backcountry snow still in the mountains and in feet quantities come July or so.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that yesterday, talking with somebody. I can't remember who, but that did come up as just a wonder. Which mountains will stick around and which ones will hold snow up high.
Yeah.
And I'm not historically familiar with all that. I don't do too much backcountry riding, but what would be your guess? Would like Durango, would that hold snow up top?
Totally. Yeah. Steamboat up here in Colorado has gotten pounded. They got I want to say they're in the 500 to 600 inch range this year. So it's they've gotten a ton of snow in the south, and down there in Durango has too, especially in the last couple of weeks. So
yeah,
there's some good backcountry snow.
I was just actually up in Steamboat last week, and took the family up there. Yeah, we took the family up there snowboarding, and and their big thing is a 400-inch season.
Is that what? Yeah.
Yeah. And
crazy.
Yeah, it is. But it was quite the routine, like going up there and just driving to the airport, just walls of snow on each side. And then some people are definitely over it. There's definitely two sides of people in Steamboat right now. And
right.
Yeah.
I get it.
So tell me a little bit. Let's I want a couple segments I want to kick off with you. One being so part of my preparation for these podcasts is I like to look at race results and people's stuff and kind of see how many races people have entered this year, last year, what kind of routine. And yours kind of spoke out to me a little bit because of the longevity of racing that you've done since 2014. It looks like.
Nice.
Yeah,
you've been listed. Sweet. I've never seen a list.
Yeah, check this. I ought to give a shout out to this website. I use it a lot, and I just stumbled upon it. It's called rootsandrain.com. And you can enter any rider, and then it will give you a list of a breakdown of just all the different stuff, enduro races and others. But it looks like
killer.
Yeah. So look at your consecutive races from 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So it's pretty interesting to me to say, man, you've definitely got some enduro races under your belt. and and then towards the end of the racing, it's, you know, it looks like you've had great success in winning a bunch of races come, you know, the last couple seasons. So my question to you is, how did you?
Place.
Yeah, my question to you is, how did you find Big Mountain Enduro, and how did you find the world of enduro racing, and get into it all together?
So I would say that it would definitely started with Yeti. As I was working with Yeti back, starting in I believe it was 2012, over their headquarters and helping all the employees there at Yeti, and then those who were racing as well. And I know Keith Garner was running the series back then, and I believe Brand had bought it from him back then. I think it was the Rocky Mountain States Cup before it was BME. And I had a desire to create something on the internet to make me money, so that I can actually make some money when I wasn't actually working, since I'm one of those hourly workers here at HQ for myself. And so I decided to, as Enduro was coming around and coming into play, I saw that nobody had popped up yet as it relates to training specifically for Enduro or multiple gravity events. And so I just went full bore into Enduro MTB training, which was my name prior to Train to Ride, which I think most people watching probably recognize. And simultaneously at that launch, Yeti went full bore Enduro and took Richie. They shut down the I think he had just won the junior world championship actually in DH, and they said, no, we're going full Enduro. So it was really good time for me to launch. And then also it was my excuse to basically to my wife that, look, I'm starting this business, but I get to start racing again, which is, a passion of mine and I love to do. So I was pretty excited to start a whole new class of racing in Enduro. And so Enduro MTB training was launched, and that was already 8 years ago. Holy smokes.
That's interesting. So the kind of the training and your Enduro racing with Big Mountain Enduro and other circuits, that kind of all went hand in hand?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
It did.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And then, so if you're getting in the training world, what were you doing prior to getting with Yeti? Have you always been focused on the training aspect?
Yeah. So my entire business, that's all I've done for 30 years, ever since leaving California where I was in college. So getting here in 93, I started the fitness industry in 91. And I've always been a cyclist, started training, basically riding mountain bikes when mountain bikes were kind of invented, back in the late 80s there up in Chico, California. So I've been riding mountain bikes since they've kind of sort of existed. And I quickly discovered in entering a couple cross-country races when I was in college that downhill was my thing, because I didn't do very well going uphill because I was 190 pounds. And then all of a sudden, the people that were passing me going uphill, I was smoking them on the downhill. And actually, it was irritating because I remember getting all bottled up in single track, just wanting people to go faster and passing people. And it was totally sketchy. And so that was kind of like the beginning, and the realization that, oh, wow, my need for speed is actually legit, because I'd had that since I was a kid. So not being able to race a car or anything with a motor, it's like, all right, here we go. We're going to race downhill.
And how did you get
style?
And how was downhill in the early days? It had to have been pretty gnarly with rugged equipment and minimal pads. And so tell me about that. How was the early downhill days?
That was funny. I had a Ty McMahon hardtail bike because there was no full suspension, right? Manitou 2 fork with the elastomers, seat high, narrow bars with bar ends, triple ring. First race in Durango, I pulled up in my my cross country tights and a cut off jersey. I rode to the top where the start was. I think I threw that race. I didn't have knee pads on. I had a half shell, and I raced it and I took third. It was just hilarious, right? It's like, that's essentially where downhill started anyway. Is I just kind of totally sketch, hold on, 26 wheels, just, cantilever brakes, arm pump, central. It was old school rough.
It was, I bet, man. I bet it was old school. These kids
don't know what downhill was back in the day.
It is one of the most interesting things to watch and stuff. Like when you, Rampage does a good job of that every season. They'll show like the history of downhill and stuff, and to see what free riding and downhill started as is just pure adrenaline and not a lot of help. So was Durango running lifts and stuff to help people up in that day, or were you guys hiking? And biking?
Gosh, no. Yeah. We rode up a road, to go to some place at the where this top point of this trail was, and I don't even remember where it was, to be honest, in Durango. Like, I couldn't even tell you where we started. And then that was it. It was one run, no practice, just blind, go. Like, and then, sweet.
Hope for the best and hope those cantilever brakes do hold up. Like, that's crazy to think about.
Right?
Yeah.
I know, huh?
I know. It's really wild to watch technology just even grow in the last, every year, really. It grows and grows and grows. But man, in the last 5-10 years, it's really picked up. It's really interesting.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And then, it's a whole different.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's a whole different experience, right? I mean, even from 2001, when I kind of pseudo retired from downhill, like just my bike then, and compared to what it is now, same amount of travel, 15 pounds lighter. I mean, the technology is tremendous, and no arm pump, and all the opposites of the way the sport started.
And then, so at that point, were you in the fitness game? You mentioned you were 190 pounds. Is that out of shape and not doing well? And did something spark there? Maybe there's something into this training aspect?
No, man, I've always been a little vain. So that was me just jacked and
gotcha,
wanting to try something new and loving cycling. And I'm tired of riding my road bike and going, wow, I spent a lot of time in, backpacking and climbing and things like that. So to be able to go fast down trails and not have to run them was a pretty cool concept of being able to take a bike on the same terrain, So that was a pretty easy no-brainer for me.
Gotcha. And then did you go cross-country racing at all too, or were you just straight gravity?
No, I did, I think, 2 cross-country events. And after that, I was seeking out gravity. The first race was down in Mammoth. That was when Tomac was on drop bars at Yeti, which was pretty awesome to watch him come down a hill with drop bars. But running kamikaze, in the same type of bike setup was humbling and scary at the same time.
Tell me
going around some of those.
Tell me what a drop bar is. Describe that for me. I don't even remember visualizing
just the old.
That.
Well, just road bike bars, basically, right? Or today's gravel bars. Yeah, that's what he ran on his. He's the only one to do it on his mountain bike, and he raced with those. So you can see those old pics of him running those back in the day.
And was that a thing that stuck around for a while?
Oh gosh, no. No, we were all like, what? Wait a minute. That belongs on a road bike. What's that doing on a mountain bike, for gosh sakes? Exactly. Right there, man.
Yeah.
Like, and geez, stud, like.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
funny.
That's wild to look at. That is really wild. It looks like a road bike, but with very.
Well, it's a total gravel bike today, right? It's like, exactly. That looks like a rad gravel bike.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Probably rides like one too.
Right.
But imagine trying to go around a corner with those, or even normal mountain bike handlebars being as narrow as like a 680, 690 with bar ends with seat high. Just how sketchy that was. I remember though, I watched him on this section of downhill. It was a straight down into the left coming into the village in Mammoth. and he pulled it. So it's a left, right? So he went he went left wheel in and came around right wheel out and slid into that corner, what's so common today too, especially in enduro racing. And just, from a Steez standpoint, and holy smokes, I remember like vividly going, what on earth did he just do? That was awesome. So cool.
That is. And he was fast, right? I mean, that guy was real fast.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah. That's awesome. That is cool to look at. Mountain bike drop bars.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. Yeah.
I would imagine it would have been really good and helpful to go up, but going down, with a rigid fork even.
Yeah. Looks like a slippery mess.
Well, look at that. It says John Tomac, the father of gravel, right? That's a perfect description of, that's a perfect description. The man way ahead of his time.
For sure. Do you follow Supercross and stuff too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of just getting into that now. Yeah.
Ooh, his son is a stud.
Yeah. For sure.
Those guys. I love me some moto.
Yeah, they were just down in Daytona, and the couple guys from BME went down there. And
oh, really?
Yeah, they went down there to kind of just check out the event and some other stuff. But it's Rob and Kevin from Utah on their way into it. And they said they had a blast. They had like huge track, huge legit setup. And it sounded cool.
When I worked in moto, that was one of my favorite venues to go with my athletes, was to go there.
Is that track different every year? That Daytona track?
It actually is, but I guess this year was the exact same as last year. So it was a little different this year because it was the same.
And then, so you also traveled the motocross circuit too, doing training for those guys and gals?
I did. Yeah. Yep. After Missy Giove and working with her until she really hurt her brain in Vail at championships. Her agent hooked me up with a couple of the moto athletes, supercross athletes. And for the next kind of 4 years with those guys, just kind of pressed in and find myself being able to work with those guys, obviously intimately, and then kind of ahead of the curve too, which was in hindsight really trippy because, back then, supercross, moto, like people weren't really training hard to be the best they could be. So being part of the beginning of the way the industry sees fitness was pretty cool because during that process, one of my athletes' agents hooked me up with somebody in snowboarding and started working with professional snowboarders. And it was the same thing, right? Snowboarding was still like, oh man, I don't want to compete. I want to do backcountry stuff and film, and I don't want to train. And so I found myself there and working with Kelly Clark and Ross Powers and some of the greats back then, Gretchen Blather. And it was fun then to be able to go on the road with those guys and be able to make a difference and kind of start to shape the way the industry saw fitness in that. And then it did the same thing with actually PGA Tour with golf through the same kind of connection with agents, and got referred to a tour and started working on tour. And that's kind of actually where I got started doing what I do a lot of day to day here, is working with golfers, believe it or not. Just kind of funny.
That is kind of interesting. I guess it all just ties together. I mean, staying fit and staying in shape for your discipline, I guess it all kind of ties together in some way.
Yeah. And in the end, it doesn't matter because, as much as my industry, the fitness industry, sees everybody as part of a field of snow, I try to take everybody individually and say, look, you're a snowflake. You have this issue and this issue and this issue that are unique to you. And we got to address those issues so that we can maximize your ability to be the best athlete you can be, and then bring that athleticism to whatever sport you choose. So, everybody's unique. And that's that uniqueness that drives my programming. And it's actually what makes it fun, is to be able to specifically prescribe unique training programs based off of people's needs.
I guess that is very good for you, especially in a profession that, you can kind of just keep it interesting day in, day out, year after year. You're always seeing new athletes and different athletes improving their discipline.
Yeah. And not to go negative, but I will, CrossFit for us, very qualified conditioning coaches and professionals really messed up our industry from a thought perspective, because it brought in a whole bunch of people who really had no understanding about how the body moves, and actually began to hurt a lot of people. I appreciate what they did as far as bring in a new format and an exciting format, and one that brings in a teamwork type, camaraderie type environment. But as we know, it wasn't driven by let's make people move better per se. Could have been, because all they needed to do was have a qualifier that says you have to have some kind of degree in order to become certified. And I think it would have really changed CrossFit in general, at least from our perspective, the fitness industry's perspective. Because I feel like it dumbed the industry down a little bit. So that's because of that.
I'm definitely aware of CrossFit and definitely aware of that strategy. I've never been to a class or been part of it, but so you're saying that they don't even have to have certified trainers that are running these things? I mean, are you just taking an online course and then saying I have a CrossFit gym?
Well, what they were doing, and I don't know what they're doing now, but they were saying you can come to a weekend certification, on site. We'll teach you what to do, and then we'll give you the plug-in that you can just go and, name your CrossFit gym and start teaching classes. Mm-hmm. And so, you had a lot of people, firemen and people of different, genres of work who were like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go be a fitness instructor. I'm going to do CrossFit. Yeah. So they went and got certified, not understanding any kind of the biomechanics and physiology behind anything really. Mm-hmm. Get 2 days worth of training and then boom. Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, they did do that. And again, kudos to them. And yes. I just think it could have been done better so that it would have made a really positive impact in the industry. So for all you CrossFit haters, don't send me an email. I don't care.
That's right. Save the hate. Save the hate. Exactly. It's all right. So what would be though? I am interested in a couple of differences that you did point out. And
shoot.
Yeah. So talk about movement then a little bit. Like I heard you say a couple of times now that certain programs weren't focusing on movement, and that could lead to injury. And how does movement kind of relate to either our day-to-day activities and movement strength, and for each person's unique discipline?
Yeah. So let's back out. I'll take that middle comment, the one that says the day-to-day. Most people in their day-to-day do what we're doing right now, which is sitting, right?
Yeah.
And sitting creates all kinds of biomechanical issues related to posture, breathing mechanics, inflexibility, joint immobilities, instability, and just an overall decrease of athleticism, right? So if we take the position that we're in right now as cyclists, it's no different for the most part, except we're leaning forward, to participate in our sport. So really cycling is one of the worst things you can do for people who have a seated workplace job. And so unwinding that is what really is important, right? In order to optimize somebody's ability to move. Because if you're flexion dominant, which is what we are in our jobs, let's say, and then we go and participate in a flexion dominant sport in one plane, basically. I mean, mountain biking, the dynamic component of mountain biking makes it better than road biking. However, it's still the same thing, right? We're still in that same position. So being able to have a program that specifically unwinds even at the individual level, because, we cross our legs, for example, right? We tend to do one side over the other because it feels good. That can create torsion at the pelvis, which then creates torsion on the spine. It goes all the way up the chain, all the way to the neck, and creates a shoulder discrepancy and a rib cage issue. And so it's a cascading effect for the habits that we do in our work. You take somebody who works in a warehouse or something like that, where there's a repetitive movement involved, and they do one thing to one side or something along those lines. That's another layer of difficulty that needs to be unwound, right? So we really consider, how does your lifestyle participate in the dysfunctional movement capabilities that you're missing or want to tap into. So we look at that component of things, and then we look at the physical with doing an evaluation and really assessing how well you move and looking for those weaknesses, so that we can provide solutions to help shore those up. Right. So that's where the complexity comes in. It's pretty easy to make a workout, but I say it takes skill to create a program.
Right.
Anybody can create a workout and make a workout hard, right? That's pretty easy to do. But to make a program that is specifically created for sport and individuals is definitely more difficult.
And that's kind of what you've built now with Train to Ride. I mean, one was Train to Ride Come Around. And then also question 2 on that is, from what I liked about digging into that was you have programs that are, 60, 90, even a year long, 60 days, 90 days, a year long. So you do develop some kind of routine, and it is specific to either road biking, enduro, and other sports.
Yeah. So Train to Ride came around in December of 21, I think, with the goal and idea to really just reach out and branch out to other forms of two-wheeled athletes in gravel, moto, and road. Because my thing is for mountain biking in particular, we need specific training for mountain bikers that are separate and independent, let's say, from a road biker, because road biking isn't as dynamic as mountain biking is, right? We don't have the size of the bike. We don't have suspension. We don't have the feedback coming from the trail, from the bike, all the different G-forces associated with, jumping and turning and everything else that we do in our sport, right? So our bodies need something different for sure for mountain biking than road. And then gravel is kind of like that in between the two, right? Because there's definitely feedback coming in from a gravel bike. And then moto is obviously a whole nother level than mountain biking, because there's now a 300-pound machine and torque coming from a motor. So just this gamut of being able to help each of those type of riders in saying, look, you get a lot of benefit from being in the gym. Right? It's just not about pounding miles, because my belief is most people who are riding and or want to race, for example, a BME, they probably have a good foundation of cardio. Right. But what they miss is those discrepancies that we've talked about in their body, right? The inflexibilities, instabilities, the posture, the breathing mechanics, the strength, endurance, right? To race a BME, man, you got to be able to do it for 2 full days and, 6 to 10 stages, depending on which venue. And you have to be able to stay and maintain your strength over time, right? So that limits fatigue. If you get tired, bad things happen, right? If something bad does happen though, and you've been training in the gym, there's a resiliency there, which we want, which is to either lessen the injury and or to help the injury heal more quickly and thoroughly, right? So there's so many benefits for mountain bikers training for mountain biking, and then adding, and we always mountain bikers, we arranged our training off of the original cycling sport, which was obviously road.
Yeah.
But I think it should go backwards now. I think road cyclists should kind of arrange their training around mountain bike training, which is more gym training. So that's where my bend was, and just be able to help more in the cycling community is really what my heart was. Even though I'm obviously sold out on gravity.
Are you going to make any BME returns? Are you going to come back and race any, you think, in the future?
Man, I so miss it.
Come back and do a race.
Scheduling wise I want to, dude. It's not because I don't want to. It's just because, those darn kids, man, their sports and the things that they like to do.
Yep.
You run out of, when you have kids and they start to get in their teenage years, you quickly realize oh my gosh, they're going to be gone from the house in 2 years. And what, and so your priorities shift a little bit. So we try to squeeze them in, and unfortunately my son wants to race and is good at it. And so that's also a bonus, because I can use that as an excuse to try to schedule. So it'll be a last minute schedule thing for us, just depending on how things come out schedule wise. But I love me some BME. Are you kidding? It's like if I don't get to race and be with, my homies, my enduro homies, it just isn't the same kind of summer,
It's quite a unique feel, isn't it, man? It is. It's very unique summers, being out there with all the homies. It's great. It's one of the things I think everybody keeps repeating to me. It's just about the community, It's a pretty solid community.
It is like it's a home away from home, right? It's the thing that I don't like though.
What?
Because I was such a knothead in college and after college, with things that I wasn't supposed to be doing related to drugs and alcohol, but I just don't have the memory that I used to have. And so I see and meet so many people. So it bums me out that I don't remember people's names very well. I was never really good to begin with, but I recognize people. But, for all y'all who, I might say, hey, what's up, dude? Or hey, how you doing or something? Please forgive me in advance. It's just, I see so many people and it's hard, but anyway.
Anyway, yeah. So did you have to give up a party lifestyle of some sort? Did I pick up on? Oh
yeah, man. As a Christian, God took away, alcohol and drugs from me about 12 years ago because it was made clear to me that I had to be a different person in order to raise a family of kids that were going to go a different direction than I did. And so I think it's been since I was 41. So I'm 54 now. So 13 years now.
Well, from a person who struggles with the same devils on the back, man, congrats on your sobriety. Number one. That's pretty large.
Thanks,
Yeah. I'm kind of going through those same hurdles, trying to figure out those hoops and loops about being a dad and when that stuff needs to be shelved and just how unpresent you can become.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, before you have kids, man, it's just you and your wife, and you kind of take those old habits into your marriage, which isn't really that good of a thing anyway, but that's what we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you have these little people and you're like, I don't know what to do. What do we do? And then you're still doing your same stuff. And all of a sudden those little kids start to pick up on things you're doing. And you're like, hey, what's that? You little mirror. What are you doing over here doing the same thing I'm doing? And then you realize it's like it hits you and you're like, oh man, these guys are sponges and I don't want them to do the same things that I did, So there's that weird conundrum of realization, like you just said, where it's like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I want better for my kids.
Well, you're exactly right, man. I mean, you're exactly right on that. Like you bring your previous lifestyle into a marriage, and that's exactly what my wife and I did. And coming out of college, we were great party buddies.
Right.
And you get into marriage, and then that stuff kind of just gets weird, and it's in the house now, and and then for me, it was like getting the kids involved. And which presents a stress that you've never been around. It's a stress that's unlike any other. And for me, and I think a lot of people out there, there's a substance out there called alcohol that will make it go away in about 2 seconds. And that's the shame about it.
But it comes rearing back that next day.
Man, the shame about it is it works, and I wish it didn't work. And then you throw on the fact of not sleeping and all the health issues that you deplete yourself of and trying to manage stress with the wrong substances. And anyway, yeah, it can get ugly.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, right? Like, I'm not saying that at all. That's where my path, that's where God took us. So I'm grateful for it. So,
well, anyway, good for you. When I hear a good block of sobriety like that, that's impressive. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And then, so how has been raising kids? What other struggles have you come upon, raising kids out there?
Man, because I'm still going through it and still really working to improve myself to be a better, husband and dad. I was a really, I grew up independent because my parents had to work, after getting divorced, my mom had to work. And so I was by myself a lot. And so when you grow up being independent, there's a certain amount of pride and ego that has to act as a protective mechanism against the world as you try to figure things out. And so, pride and ego was a big problem of mine. And for, I think, men, what I've heard from men and through therapy and things like that is that anger is one of those things that we lash out on pretty easily to protect ourselves. Mm-hmm. And you can't bring that into, a loving environment where you're trying to love a spouse and serve a spouse, and it doesn't work out well. So, there's been pain and trauma because of that habit and unawareness and ignorance, really, right? Until you realize something that's and how it's harming somebody, you really don't know until you find out, right? And then you begin the process of reconciliation and healing and things. So, I think the realization for me is some of those sinful lifestyles and habits, I would not only brought into my relationship and started working on, but then they were showing up in my kid patterns, raising my kids a little bit. Fortunately, I was able to nip those in the bud before they became young adults, and really, live a really neutral life as it relates to being able to ask for forgiveness when I've made a mistake or, say sorry, and then kind of repent, so to speak, and return, turn around and do it differently and do it better and be a better example. Because like nutrition and exercise, we parents, we are training our kids for the future and how they're going to treat our grandkids, and then how the grandkids are going to learn for our great, you know what I mean? So I think for me, that was like, oh man, I don't want to injure here in the present, the future by how I'm acting.
Right.
I'd like to be a chain breaker. So,
well, yeah. How interesting though. I mean, that must've been really fulfilling as a dad and as a human that kind of went through struggles, that when your kid needed you, that you weren't messed up and in a wrong frame of mind. You were actually prepared and possibly, gave them the advice that they needed. That had to have been pretty rewarding.
It is. And even more rewarding than that is the fact that my wife was able to stay home and homeschool our kids. So they got my rougher side, so to speak, my experience in the world side, but they got the real sweet, soft, humble side of my wife, and more of her, which is good because she is a better person than me, to pour into them. Right.
Yeah.
So I think now my daughter, who's 19, is able to see the stuff that I was teaching her as she's starting to go through, college and stuff and experience the world a little bit. Mm-hmm. She's seeing that now. It's starting to come to fruition, which is good.
Yeah. And how important was having the outdoor background at your, fingertips to, how important was it to guide, your kids at a young age to say this could be an outlet for you, like it is for me and others that I know?
Yeah, I think, they always went with me to races, right? So they were able to be part of the BME lifestyle, so to speak, and they grew up at BME races, so I think they were able to see both a competitor, somebody who loved the sport and was able to compete, and then also the person who was able to serve others and, help others and meet others and really just kind of be in an environment where there's a lot of people and you get to just kind of, in our case, reflect God and be kind and treat others the way you want to be treated and just kind of serve people, So, and they got to see that through the lens of me participating as an athlete, and they did the same thing actually through their sports, which is powerful,
Yeah, that is pretty powerful. It's a good example you're setting, man. Props to you for that. Good job.
I appreciate it, dude. It as you know, it's hard, and it's a privilege and a pleasure to be able to raise kids, and I encourage people who are out there who might think they don't want to. I get it, but the world needs strong-willed, positive kids with strong morals and values.
Yeah.
So
it is a heavy responsibility. It's a heavy responsibility, but it's also so rewarding and so awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's really cool. I was able to actually take my kids out the steamboat, and it was one of the best dad days I've ever had watching my 8-year-old just follow me down the mountain, making perfect turns. And it just blew me away. So
with a big old smile on his face.
Woo! She was proud, man. She was so pumped, man.
Yes.
She was so pumped. Little That's 5-year-old's awesome. Just soaking in the whole mountain life just as an experience. Yes. So she was just, anyway, it was a good reward. Anyway, but hey, man, thanks for sharing about that, because I think that guys don't talk about this stuff enough, especially in this day. We get over, we don't talk about it enough. The struggles kind of just get sucked in and pushed down, and that's just not the answer,
I totally agree. And you know what? I'll tell people too, if anybody ever want to talk, I'm willing. So
there you go.
I'd rather have you talk and it would just be, even if you just need an ear, I'm working on my ability to listen. So,
yeah. What's the number one thing you can do is give back, and just being available is key. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And where can people find you? Train2ride.com, train 2, the letter or the number 2.
No, that's the Instagram handle. The URL is train2ride.com.
Okay.
And then info@train2ride.com for email. Yep.
And then the Instagram?
Instagram is train the number 2 ride.
Gotcha.
And then Facebook is Train to Ride Coaching. Train awesome. TO Ride Coaching. Because somebody has trained the number 2 ride, don't it? On Facebook. Well,
that's cool, man. Everybody can find you there, and hopefully they'll find what they're looking for. So what else? I want to touch base with you on something else. I got changing topics, and I'll put it up on the screen. And you mentioned that you worked with Missy.
Yes.
How cool was that?
It was really cool. Because of her persona, when I first started working with her, I had a certain thought or image that what I thought she would be like.
Sure.
But what I learned was she was a really compassionate, just loving person who likes to help and engage. It's actually one of the first times I ever met her was in Hawaii. I was doing a race in Hawaii, and she was there, and I got to the start line on this downhill, and my chain broke, and her mechanic popped up on there, fixed my chain real quick, and I was still able to race. And I went down there. Monkey was his name. He's since passed away, but he that's my son's nickname. Nice. So I went and got him some beer and met Missy, and we started talking, and she was looking for a coach, and it worked out. But she is a super nice individual. And I hope to see her soon. Actually, it's been a while.
Well, yes. I heard she had some struggles, and this is my shot. I'm going to shoot my shot with Missy. I think that she resides somewhere in Western North Carolina, kind of where I'm from. But I'd love to speak with her. So if maybe she hears this, I'm local in Asheville, Missy. So it would be awesome to have you on, and
do it, Missile.
Do it. It'd be so cool. I know she's kind of laying low from what I hear. I don't know too much, but I hear whispers that she's around this part of the town. So
exactly.
I thought I have an experience with her back in probably 1999 or 2000. I worked at Snowshoe. I worked there trying to get my name going, trying to get my foot in the door in the marketing department there. And we were always real big into skiing, snowboarding. We all taught skiing, snowboarding there. Went to a college that was locally, and after college, Snowshoe was a great employment place, so we would all kind of filter there, looking for corporate freedom or corporate jail, however you want to put it. It had its. I have stories from there that are just so crazy. But anyway, one of my things with the marketing was running events, kind of what I'm doing with BME now, helping put on events. And a thing called Norba came through. And and that was kind of my like first experience into watching and seeing gravity sports in person, of mountain biking. And and it was wild, man. It was just it caught my eye from that point on. And I would go rent a bike here and there and kind of off clock at Snowshoe, try to go down the trails, and I was just beating myself up. But
right.
And then one of those summers, Missy Giobbe came through, and it was just the talk of the town, man. She was on top of the game. She was a true rock star. I mean, it was something else. So
Piranha and all, it was awesome.
Yeah. So it must have been just
her style and everything.
Oh, she had the style, she had the swag, the attitude. And then the balls to just back it up and throw it down the mountain.
Throw
it down the mountain and rip her helmet off and just start cheering to the crowd. I get chills talking about it.
Yeah, I know, man. It was fun.
So maybe you can put in a good word. Maybe you can put in a good word for me.
If I knew how, I'd text her right now, but I don't. But
yeah.
Hopefully she's watching, because
I guess that'd be the only thought. Yeah, I tried to look her up on Instagram and stuff, but it looks like she's far from social media.
Yep.
Anyway,
awesome.
Good athlete. That brings back a lot of memories for me. So anyway,
yes, sir.
So something else you touched on, I'm interested on, because I'm also a snowboarder and grew up all through college snowboarding. Taught a bunch of snowboarding, and then made my venture out west, lived in Summit County, went broke, did the ski bum lifestyle, true ski bum party lifestyle for a good 2 or 3 years. And then we kind of retreated and got more direction in life, let's just say. So how was it training snowboarders? I'm interested in that. Like, because the backcountry days are like no other. If you go out to the backcountry for any amount of time, that, hiking through those drifts, trying to get to your spot and then digging all day, for those backcountry shoots. Did you actually work with these guys on doing that kind of stuff?
Actually, I didn't. I mean, I worked with Eddie Wall, who was one of those backcountry athletes, and he dipped his toe into competing, on X Games and then in the pipe series and slopestyle and stuff. So I was mainly at events with my athletes. So they were doing their thing in those particular categories. X Games obviously being the most fun experience, right? Being up in Aspen in those years was in the kind of the beginning years of X Games was awesome. Getting, kind of the backstage passes and things like that, so to speak, and being able to go behind the ropes and, really be there with the athletes is always a fun thing in every sport. It didn't matter if it was moto or PGA Tour or anything. Like, having that type of access as a coach is pretty unique and super exciting. And it just it creates a whole experience of reward around the whole thing, So the snow thing was pretty cool, besides cold, but it was cool.
So here's the question of the day then. All right.
Yeah.
You got the PGA Tour, you got motocross, you got the X Games. Man. You've got what else? Throw a couple other A-listers in there. A-list events. I want to know who's got the best VIP hospitality tent service.
Oh, dude, you know who that's going to be.
Got to be the PGA, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
All right.
It is. So interestingly enough, it was funny going from, moto was pretty low budget because the teams would, they'd all make, dinner and stuff for riders and the crew and things like that. Snow was better because of, X Games and things like that and the access. And then when you get on tour, you've got, where the players go to eat and their locker rooms and, the venues of that are provided by the sponsors and things like that. So you definitely take a level up as it relates to the money in the sport.
Yeah.
So it was different that way. A lot more mellow, of course, right? But
what is it like showing up for a PGA event then as a trainer? Are you there a week ahead of time? Are you with them a month ahead of time? Like what kind of schedule does a PGA Tour kind of implement with that?
You know, it was actually similar to snow and moto too, because the snow and moto races, you know, practice would be on Saturday and race would be on Sunday type thing. Mm-hmm. And actually Friday practice as well, or track walk or something like that. So for PGA Tour, it was similar. I would get there on a Tuesday. I would travel there. We would do our thing, like table work, kind of the soft tissue work that we need to do on Tuesday nights. I'd re-screen them on Wednesdays. They'd go play their pro-am. I would create their programs, typically either Thursday or Friday after the rounds. And again, this is similar with moto and snow. I would teach them their new program, and we'd actually do a workout, and then probably do the same thing, or at least a review on that Saturday evening. And then I'd be out by, Sunday afternoon. I'd have to split. But so similar amongst the three sports, we're going in and doing the work that we need to help them, perform at their highest, and then also, get them to know their next step and next program before I went out and saw again.
And then would it be like a week on, a week off, or were you just constantly traveling to and from wherever you were located at home?
It was always in and out from my home. Tour wise, I'd go out probably every month, every 5 weeks. Snow, it depended on more where they were. If they were international, I couldn't go, but it depended on where they were and then what athletes needed what based off of the scheduling. Moto, I ranged it around Mike LaRocco, my main kind of premier rider at the time, and went whenever he needed it, and then just started meeting other people and serving them when I was there. So it kind of worked out that way.
Gotcha. Yeah. Kind of the traveling tour you will follow. You will train, you will heal. Any tour put you on
half table will travel. That's right.
And as part of your training gig, are you also doing a lot of helping people get back on their feet from injuries? Do you do a lot of rehab training as well?
Yeah, great question. And I do. And so I always say there's this big chasm between post physical therapy or medical and fitness, and there's not a bridge, right? These days, especially because of insurance and what have you, so many people get joint replacements, for example, and there's no PT. You get a hip replaced, no PT. You get a knee replaced, no PT. I'm like, what on earth is going on? And so people will get all kinds of biomechanical issues associated with, one, the pain going in, right? Because they're already compensating in their movement because of the pain. They maintain those pain patterns, even though they have a new joint, and they still move the same way. And so the last part of any injury, for example, isn't the physical healing. It's the mental part that needs to be dismissed, right? Oh, I've got a bad hip. So if you're not working on the PT part of it, the physicality, that mental part usually is there. And, research says that if you injure something, it's going to happen. The likelihood that it's going to happen again is in the 70% range. Mm-hmm. But if you're strong, you get injured, and then you rehab and you get strong again, and you get rid of that mental component, I believe, I don't know of any research, but I believe that goes way down.
Yeah. What's one of the hardest injuries that you've seen to come back for? What's one of the roughest injuries that there are to rehab?
Oh man, any kind of spinal fusion is not good. The body is so resilient. Ankle reconstruction is pretty difficult. If you make your ankle not move and it's fixed and it doesn't move, that's pretty bad. Yeah. Head injuries, that's a whole different thing, but the body you can come back from everything.
I listened to,
it just has to be done well.
Yeah. I listened to, podcast with Tony Hawk on it. And, man, he months ago now, on a half pipe, completely just snapped his femur.
Oh, dude, I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, and I think it was even a compound on it. Like it even broke the skin a bit.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's got to be one of the most painful things that you can go through, I believe.
That's kind of what he says too. And that dude, it sounds like, has been through every body injury you can probably think of.
Totally.
Yeah. Can't even imagine.
That is a big, thick, dense bone. And for that thing to break in half and go through that thick quads area, dude.
Yeah.
Whew. Wow.
If you say it's bad, then it's double bad. I mean, listening to him talk
the only thing
about
I could think that might be more painful is like Jeremy McGrath did. And I think he dislocated his hip. The head of that femur came out of the socket. Like, I think that could be worse.
Were you around for that?
No.
Yeah.
Ugh. And God bless women for being able to have babies like they do.
Let's give it up. Yep.
Right?
That's a whole nother aspect of life that I wasn't sure that was even possible. And then when you see it with your own eyes, you really can't believe what you saw.
Nope. And it is awesome.
It is awesome. And it is awesome. And the medical community is awesome on that, man. We had a crazy little scare with our second one, man, when they had a double wrap around her neck. And this was our second kid, man. So we were all kind of just chilling and things were going easy. I think we had Bob Marley playing. We were just vibing, and my wife was doing great. And the lady doctor, I forget her name anyway. She was doing her thing, man, and she was very jovial. But when all of a sudden her tone switched, man, to where she knew something was wrong. Buddy, man, she jumped into superhero mode, and
and that team came in from nowhere.
I mean, came in from nowhere, and it was mind-blowing to see how fastly they responded and how efficiently they responded.
Yep.
And, reflecting on that night, it was funny. I was like, so I wonder if that was just a day. I mean, how many times a shift is that happening for her?
That's right. Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
But, to know your skill and when it was called upon to just react like that. So,
like first responders, right? And police officers and firemen and things, it just kicked in, right? And military.
Yep.
And God bless them all.
Yep. And we named her Liv. So
that's awesome.
It is
awesome.
Well, what else you got going on, man? What else can we cover for you? What else can we blow up for you?
Oh man, I would just go back to what kind of covered just a little bit, and that's just to encourage, mountain bikers and cyclists in general, just to think about training a different way. Think about how you can maximize your athleticism and bring that to your bike instead of being, just a pair of lungs with legs. I just put up an Instagram post about skiing, and I was just skiing and recording going down the hill at the same time, saying, look, man, I haven't skied in 5 years, but it didn't take but 2 minutes for me to get on my edges and start hauling ass again. And it just felt good. And that's what it's all about, right? Is just being able to do what we want to do when we want to do it. And then the thing that we want to do the most, we're the best at because we're the most prepared.
Right.
And it's not too late right now. Like you said, with the 90-day, it's like, get started with a 90-day right now. It's $47 for guys. So even my 6 month,
get on that,
MTB Strong, or it's like $100 for 6 months of training. And I did a really good job. Not to toot my own horn, but I purposely did a really super good job and gave a ton of information. And, whether you need personal coaching, I do long distance as well. If you need specific needs, I'm working with an 11-year-old up in the PNW. He's fun, and we're just trying to help him work through his growth and development patterns right now, for kids. So,
and then getting older, man, the best advice is getting older people like me is just to stay daily healthy, like you said, so you can go skiing. When these things do pop up, you can go for a ride. But staying day to day, mobile and active as you get older is really key.
Well, and that's a good point because, even at 54, I'm still super dense. Mm-hmm. Like my musculature, my body is dense, because it's been, I haven't really quit ever, and I can do what I want when I want to. My flexibility, and I'm really flexible naturally because I was a wrestler, but I'm starting to notice that I just need to spend a little more time than I normally do, which for me isn't a lot. It might be twice a week and I'm really good. But realize men in particular, if you can't move well, if you can't touch your toes, you got work to do, man.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And if you just do it semi-regularly through your life, it stays with you. Cause I'm not going to be on meds, man. I'm not going to be in a home. I'm not going to be confined. I'm not going to have restrictions on my life because I'm getting close to 60. It's like, so, I'm still breaking PRs on the trail. It's like, well, why not? Just all you have to do is be consistent. And having a program helps with that because, I lay it out. All you have to do is go, oh, I got to do program A today and whatever else, and check. It makes it, I'm not going to say mindless, but it makes it easy.
Yeah. Well, we need that. We need easy in our lives, man. We need people like you to put it out there, so serve it up. Some of the downfalls the ruts I get into is when you do think you're on a program of your own and you do think you're on the right track, then you get easily distracted and then it becomes an easy excuse not to do something because it's not in front of you. It's not written down. The excuses are easy,
Well, and why are you trying to figure it out? You don't know.
That's right. It's done. Why figure it out?
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to go try to, lay bricks or, lay tile on a roof I'm like, I could learn it, but it doesn't mean I'm an expert. You know what I mean? And it's going to be all shoddy and I'm going to have an expert come in and redo what I did. You know what I mean? So seek, I get a coach, I still spend a ton of money on continuing education because that's how you grow. So
That's right, man. Well, that's great, man. I can't thank you enough for doing this with me. That you've been a wealth of information, and just a good guy to sit and talk to for an hour. So I appreciate it.
Back at you, Rich. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I love me some BME, and if you're watching this and haven't done a BME race, sign up.
Hey, man. Well, listen, will you stay on for me real quick? I was going to do a live plug. I agree. We've got registration that's still open. And so we want everybody, if you've been listening to this podcast and kind of thinking about maybe getting out to know some of these people we've talked with, they're accessible. These people are out here.
That's right. Some of the biggest pros in the world.
Yeah, it's crazy. So registration, we still got spots open, and I think at each stop they are filled up pretty quickly. But this thing's a popular series, and we hope to make it even more accessible for everyone. So,
yeah, and even if you're not going to race, come out and watch, because watching highly skilled people go fast down a trail is very invigorating.
Yeah, yeah, you will be blown away what you see.
Right?
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being a great ambassador of BME, man, and being a fan and being a contributor, more importantly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, buddy. So hope to see you out there and see you at the races maybe this year.
You got it, man. Thank you so much.
All right, D. Thanks, buddy. And thanks everyone for listening. Have a good week.
See you guys.